often there's a disconnect between meditation and our hatha yoga practice, or meditation and the other limbs of yoga. So our goal today is to take you through first an understanding of yoga, what it's about completely, not just meditation, not just the postures, and how you can link the different limbs together to get the full benefits of the practice. We are not focusing on 3 of the limbs of yoga, which are the first 2 and the last one. So the first 2 limbs of yoga are the yamas and the niyamas, and these are essentially things that you do and things that you don't do. Practice this, don't practice that, good behaviors and so on. And we are not going to get into that because that's up to you. We can't teach that to you, we can't make you do that, we can't bring that about in your experience. That's just something that you have to do on your own. The last limb of yoga is samadhi, or the oneness state. That's not something anyone can give you. That's something that you experience after you've put together all of these other limbs. So you see the first 2 and the last limb of yoga, that's completely up to you. Really, it's true that all life is yoga, and it just depends on where we are in figuring that out. The whole idea of yoga, the word itself means union, and when they talk about yoga in the Yoga Sutras, which is part of this handout I gave you, they mean yoga as samadhi, or a oneness state, or a state of knowing what you really are. Most people are introduced to yoga through the mat, through hatha yoga practice, which is really good, because within our bodies, this is where we store any traumas that we have. This is where we store any emotional states that don't serve us. Within our bodies, essentially, is every bit of conditioning that we can imagine. Okay? When you have pain, and it's chronic pain, it's been there for years. I've heard it said, and I've seen it work out in reality, that oftentimes when there is chronic pain, it's not because there is still an injury there. It's because that the mind, the brain, is still remembering that there was once an injury there. Okay? And so when you learn to link up the body with the nervous system and the brain through your hatha yoga practice, the nervous system is able to check in and say, oh, everything's okay. So we can let go of this pain. We can let go of this discomfort. When you can let the body and the mind come together, you are able to let go of this state of worry or anxiety. Because if you think about it, right now, raise your hand if you are consciously beating your heart. You are telling your heart to beat. You are saying beat, beat, beat. It's just happening, right? What about all the millions of cellular activities that are going on? Are you telling your body to do that? No. Now the thing is that it is happening of its own accord. And there are, 7 billion people now on the planet? Something like that. It's happening across the planet in the same way. 7 billion people. For the most part, their bodies are functioning in and of themselves. And so once you tap into that, once you can look into that through your hatha yoga practice, you can relax a little bit more because you see that life happens in and of itself. Thinking about it isn't going to change anything. Okay? Now you can change your life through your thoughts, sure, but for the most part, life will keep occurring, life will keep happening whether you think about it or not. Now, to experience this state of samadhi or oneness, this is going beyond your personality, going beyond who you think you are. And so if you have a problem, who does that problem happen to? Yourself, right? The problem happens to yourself. Now let's say through your meditation practice, through your hatha yoga practice, you are able to see that this little self that you imagine to be real, yes, my name is Ryan, I'm a Vedic astrologer, I teach meditation, I'm related to these people. That's all my personality, who I think I am. If I can let go of that, I let go of hundreds of thousands of worries. I'm able to simply exist in peace. One time I had a dream that there's a book I like to read called Vasistha's Yoga, and it says that real yoga practice across the board is letting go of cravings and desires and hopes. So if you can let go of all of your cravings and desires and hopes, you can experience enlightenment. Why is that? Because the cravings, the desires, the hopes, this is what keeps you in an uncomfortable state. This is what makes you unhappy, because you want something that you don't have, and so on. And so in this dream, it was really strange. I just had this vision of desires, and in the dream, since it's a dream, it was kind of weird. I thought, well, I would like to have a dog. And so I realized that by that desire of simply wanting to have something like an animal, a dog, well, now I have to feed this animal. I have to have a place to live for this animal to live. I have to have money so I can buy the food. In order to get money, I have to have a job. In order to have a job, I have to interact with people. And it just goes on and on and on, just from that one desire of wanting a dog. One of the things about your hatha yoga practice is it also teaches you discipline, and it teaches you to let go of this incessant, obsessive-compulsive thinking. And if you imagine yourself in your hatha yoga practice, how many of you, when you first got started, really didn't like it? Any of you not really like the postures? Only one person? Okay, well, I didn't like it either. Okay. I wasn't a very physically interactive individual, and it just really pissed me off. I just didn't like it. It made me angry. And then when we were at Jeri's studio, every time we did yoga, it's like they had the heat turned up, which just made me even more angry. So you see, by doing that practice, I realized that I had some anger issues. Okay? But I continued doing the yoga. And I really did take that seriously. And I learned that if I could see that anger, if I could see that discomfort, just from getting in triangle pose, just from doing triangle pose, that would irritate me, that I would learn to go into the pose. I would observe my emotions, my breathing, my body, and then I would just breathe deeply and let it go. And you do that repeatedly. You get into the pose, the irritation comes up, relax. Let it go. Every time you do that, you are changing the circuitry within your brain so that you are not so easily triggered by things like anger. If, when you're in your yoga practice, or even in life in general, things bring up anxiety, you can remember this state of being within your body and present. You can say, okay, I see this anxiety, so I'm just going to breathe in and let it go. Again, this isn't magic. So it's not going to be the first time you do it, bam, no more anxiety, no more anger. It means that every single time that comes up, that you can bring your awareness within, that you can breathe, you are changing that circuitry, that pathway, that energetic state, so that things like anxiety don't bother you anymore. This is yoga practice even in your daily life, because if you are so engrossed in your anger or your anxiety or your thoughts, you identify yourself by them, it's really hard for you to let go of them because that's who you are, right? Maybe not any of you here, but have you ever seen someone who just got angry and all of a sudden they were a completely different person? It's like there was no talking to them, there was no control, it was just they were just in this state. Or someone who is sad, no matter what you said to them, they were just, oh, what's the point? Or what, something like that. The reason that talking to them didn't work was because they were so identified with that emotional state that they couldn't see anything else, you see. And so by practicing your breath awareness, your hatha yoga, your meditation, you start to pull back and see these thoughts, this thing that I think I am, is not really me. And the more that you can do that, the clearer you become and the more in control of your own life you become, because you are no longer being pushed around by all of these characteristics that you've been so accustomed to. Okay? So really our yoga practice number one is to give us the proper foundation so that we can have complete, or as complete as possible, freedom within our life. All right? Freedom from your emotions so that you can choose what you want to feel. Freedom from your thoughts so that you can think what you want to think. Freedom to be strong and healthy within your body. So when someone says, hey, can you help me move this couch? You don't say, oh, my back, I know, I can't do that. You say, yeah, sure, I can go help you. All right? So you see, you get freedom across the board. Freedom in your health so that you aren't constrained by colds or allergies or sickness or debility. Again, as best as you can be. And then you can live in this state of yoga. So that's what this is really all about. You are still practicing yoga as long as you are present. When you're meditating, if when you're meditating you start to daydream or you start to nod off or you have a thought or an emotion come up and all of a sudden you're just thinking about it, that's not being present. So I would say that if you're meditating and that happens, you need to bring yourself back and focus. Then you'll be doing it successfully. In your hatha yoga portion of your practice, the physical portion of your practice, you want to make sure that every move that you make is deliberate, and that your mind is engaged in the movement, in the muscles, in the breath. And anytime a distraction comes up, because it's easy, how many of you have a regular yoga practice and you just have it memorized, so you just go through it mechanically, and as you're going through it mechanically, you're still thinking about all these other things? Do any of you have that? Okay, a number of you do. And so what you want to do is, even in your normal routines, set the intention in the beginning. This is my time to, when I go into Warrior 2, Warrior 1, Triangle Pose, Child's Pose, Camel Pose, whatever it might be, whatever muscle I am using, that is where my attention goes. Whatever I am doing, that is where my attention goes. And what this will do is it brings you into the present moment, but the other thing that it does is that it energizes your body with more life force. So wherever your awareness goes, wherever your attention goes, that healing prana goes, that harmonious life force goes. And when we do the shavasana and the pratyahara later in this workshop, we're going to practice in such a way so you get that experience, because you can actually heal your body after you do a yoga practice just by going into corpse pose and watching. So you feel your feet, you feel your legs, you feel your belly, you feel your body twitch a little bit. You just, whether there's pain or no pain, it doesn't matter. You just observe what you are feeling. And your body will move in such a way that if there is an injury or a trauma there, it will release it. If you need more energy in a certain area, in one of the organs, whatever it might be, it will bring it there. So you see, even when you're doing your hatha yoga practice, by having that internalized attention, you are strengthening the body, you are also strengthening the mind. And I don't mean the mind it's crazy thinking the monkey. You're not strengthening the monkey. You're strengthening the power so that you are in control of what's going on. And this isn't force, this is just knowing that you can do it. Any of you play a musical instrument? Couple people? Okay. So think about when you're playing a musical instrument. If you know how to play a song, do you sit around and worry, oh, do I still know how to play that song? No, you can sit down and you know it's just going to happen. That's the kind of control that we're talking about here. You get such awareness into your body and such presence that things don't have to be thought about. They just occur naturally because you intend it, you will it, you have that intention for it to come about. Right? Now, the pranayama portion of our practice, this is breath awareness, and Jeri is going to be going over this more later. So typically with alternate nostril breathing, it's good to do this before meditation practice, at least 12 to 24 rounds of it, because what this does is when you are inhaling through one side of the nostrils, exhaling through the other and so on, looks like this. Inhale through the left side. Hold the breath for an instant. Close off that side. Exhale. The opposite. Inhale. And exhale again through the left side. So this is one round of alternate nostril breathing. And this harmonizes the left and right hemispheres of the brain, so it allows you to think better and more clearly, harmonizes the nervous system. It also harmonizes the lunar and solar energies within the body, the masculine and feminine energies within the body. And what I'd like you to do is put your hand under your nose and breathe out and see if you can feel air coming more out of one side than the other. Does anyone notice that? If so, raise your hand. I just want to see how many people notice that. Okay, good. What happens here is that there's a certain number of time, depends on the individual, sometimes 45 minutes, sometimes 2 hours. The tissue within the nostrils will swell on one side and relax on the other side. And when that occurs, it makes breath come out of one nostril more than the other. And so usually when someone is breathing more out of the right side of the nostril, they're more invigorated. They might be angry. They're more alert and aware. They're more active. They're more in a fiery, or what we would call masculine state. When it's coming out of the left side of the nostril, that's more of a lunar state. Usually people are more relaxed, maybe a little sleepy, calmer, sometimes could be depression. But no matter what state it is, if you use alternate nostril breathing 12 to 24 rounds, in time you will start to breathe out of both nostrils equally. And when this occurs, it's said that the energy is moving through the middle pathway, or the sushumna in the spine, which is beyond duality and which is a very harmonized state for the nervous system. Okay? So when you meditate and you get in this space where you're breathing out of both nostrils, that makes it easier for you to internalize your awareness. All right. Now, how do we do this? You can use malas, so you all have a mala. You can count this off. You've got your mala, you hold one bead, and Jeri will go over it probably in a little bit different way, but I'm just sharing an alternative. So you breathe in one side, exhale the opposite side, breathe back in the same side, and back out one round. You move down to the next bead, and so on. Let's say you don't have your beads with you, but you want to do 12 to 24 rounds of this. Does everyone have all their fingers? Okay, if you have all of your fingers, you have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12 sections on each hand. And so one thing I do when my mala is not around is I put my thumb to my index finger on this first section, and I do my first round. All right, so there's number one. Now I move on to the next section. I do it again. Next section, do it again. If I want to do 12 rounds, I just go through these 12 sections on this hand. If I want to do 24 rounds, I switch hands and I start over on this hand. Typically, it takes me about 7 minutes to go through 12 rounds, 14 minutes to go through 24 rounds. So this is included in your meditation practice. And one of the other benefits of this pranayama technique is that, let's say that you are in a state where you're kind of lethargic or inert or despondent, whatever it might be. You may notice that the breath is mainly flowing out of the left side. So you do alternate nostril breathing. It neutralizes those flows. It harmonizes the nervous system. So now you can perk up. Let's say you've got too much flow coming out of the right side. You're a little irritable, a little angry, a little bit overstimulated. You know, it's time to go to sleep and you still just can't quite get your thoughts to shut down. If you do alternate nostril breathing for 12 to 24 rounds, again, bring that balance back, you will go to sleep much easier because the mind and the emotions are intimately connected to the breath. When the breath can flow freely, the mind and the nervous system can work effectively. So that is the benefit of this alternate nostril breathing. Okay. Now, after we practice asana and then pranayama, the next thing that we can go into is pratyahara, or internalization of attention. Now, internalization of attention is when you become the witnessing presence. And I'd like to encourage you to have this idea or this image when you're practicing this. Imagine a time when you've been outside, maybe by a lake, by a river, in a field, in the forest, whatever it might be, or go do this now because this will help you. And you sit down and you are aware of the sunlight and you are aware of the wind moving through the field or through the trees. You're aware of the sound of birds or cars in the distance. All of these things come into your senses and you're not judging them at all. You are just simply noting. You're just taking notes, basically. You don't care what you see, you just take notes. This is a way of becoming the witnessing presence, of starting to internalize your attention, because you're letting go of engagement in the mind. Now, after you've practiced hatha yoga, the pranayama, and let's say you're in corpse pose or shavasana, now what you do is you imagine that your body is like this scene in nature. And as you're sitting there now or laying down, don't change anything. Just continue doing what you're doing. But what I'd like you to do now is pull back a little bit. Whatever you've been thinking about, whether it's related or not, it's okay. Just let it go. And as you're looking around or listening to me talk, just notice how you feel in your body. Doesn't matter if it feels good, doesn't matter if it feels bad or neutral. I'm just aware of sitting. I feel the ground under my feet. I can feel the wind from the fan coming down. I see all of you out there. I hear my voice occasionally. And as I'm internalized, all I'm doing is watching that. That's it. Good or bad, doesn't matter. You just see it. Now go ahead and close your eyes a minute. Don't move. Just keep sitting the way you are, but now close your eyes. And just be aware of the silence. Maybe you hear your breath. Maybe you're thinking that you'd like to have lasagna for dinner. But you see, the thoughts are also something that you're watching. It's not you. Maybe you feel a little uncomfortable, or maybe you feel really relaxed. Again, no judgment. It's just what you feel. And continue to keep your eyes closed. Pretending that you are a point of awareness and that your senses are bringing you information. It's just information. And that you are aware of your mind. It's just the noise of the mind. Doesn't matter what it's saying. And your emotions too are a kind of information. It's not you. When you're ready, take a deep breath in. Exhale, relax. And you can open your eyes. Good. This simple practice, and continue doing it, just listen, pay attention, feel, hear. This simple practice, in time, brings you into awareness of what you really are. The thing that is beyond the personality, that witness that was there before you were born, was there when you were 3 years old, when you were 14, when you're going to be 80 or dead. There's still going to be something that is aware of all of those changes, and that is the real you. That kind of sounds kooky if you're not really used to thinking of things in that way or experiencing things in that way. But this is so important because if you can experience that state where you know what you are beyond the mind and the emotions, things bother you less. You're able to actually function in a way that is appropriate to the moment or the circumstances. Any of you know anyone with mental illness?
Not ourselves.
Yeah. Well, you know, Yogananda, he used to say that we're all a little crazy, but we have a tendency to hang out with people just like us, so we don't really see it that often. But the reason I bring up the mental illness thing is because if you know someone who really has mental illness, oftentimes they experience things that are not really there. Or it doesn't make sense. Someone might hear voices or whatever, and you try to tell them as much as you can, that's not real. I'm like, what do you mean it's not real? I can hear it, okay? And so you see, that is an extreme case of what we would call ignorance. And I don't mean ignorance in a judgmental way. I just mean that they just don't know. Or people who are alcoholics or who have addictions, they think they really need these things, right? Because they don't know what life is like really free of that without them. And this equates to kind of where we are right now, because most people think that they are this little person who is related to these people, who has these problems, who wants to achieve this in life. And anytime you try to challenge that, what happens? Oh, what are you talking about? No, you know, this is me, this is what I'm all about. And we have to remember that our yoga practice is leading us into freedom so that we don't have to, we can play that role if we want to, because we're all here to play a role, but we don't have to be bound by that role. And so even in your work and in your business, this is important because you may have to do things that go counter to what you think you should be doing. You can be so free in your life. Not that you can get everything that you want whenever you want it, but so that when something arises that you need to act in a certain way, you're not bound by your ego. You're not bound by these constrictions. You say, this is what I want to do. If I want to do this, I have to change. I have to be different. The yogi is able to play the role in their life right now. But if they have to change that role for a period of time, they're able to do that because they're free. Okay? They're still going in the direction they want to go, but they're able to adjust because they're not so stuck. All right? So by practicing Pratyahara, you're learning to turn within, to witness all these things that you think you are, and to simply exist thought-free as much as possible, yet aware that everything is okay. and that you are eternal, and that you are timeless. Now, the concentration part comes after Pratyahara, because you can't really concentrate if you're still distracted by all these external situations. So if you're trying to meditate or concentrate, yet you can't ignore the thoughts, or you're still focused on pain or other things, you can't concentrate. So essentially what we're learning to do is pull within, so that now you can choose what you want to experience, what you want to have a unifying experience with. So with your meditation practice, you choose a focus point. When I first got started, I chose a candle. Again, it was all I could do to sit there and stare at that candle for 7 minutes without feeling I was going to jump out of my skin. I can do this. And then when I was done, felt great. I could go run around. So that was my first focal point. But then I realized that it's really useful for you to focus on something that you want to focus on. So any of you who have taken meditation classes before, someone would say, well, use this mantra, we'll focus on that. Well, in the Yoga Sutras, I don't know if I have it in this handout, but it says that meditation is alert concentration on your chosen object or ideal. Your chosen object or ideal. So let's say it's easy for you to imagine and focus on the feeling of love. Just love, that's it. Not love of anything, just love. And so when you sit and you're internalized, now what are you going to do? You're going to bring up that feeling of love. You're going to concentrate on it. You're going to breathe. Every breath is going to be like fanning the flames to make that stronger and stronger and stronger within you. If you're interested in that, it draws your attention. Then you learn to focus very clearly. Right? For me, I like to imagine that I am infinite, that the real me, the real body of myself, is not just this form, but it's you, it's this floor, it's this wall, it's the earth, it's the stars. That's my body. So I really get into that. I like it. So when I sit down to meditate, I can easily flow my attention into that and stay there for a long time. So try to find a point of concentration that you can easily flow your attention to. Just because someone says this mantra does that doesn't mean it's going to work unless you know what mantra means and unless you're really into experiencing what that mantra represents and so on. Okay, so find something in that way. And then the neat thing happens is once you're able to hold your attention on that point, this is where people falter and where they think they might be screwing up, but they're not. You're focused on light, the infinite, love, whatever it might be. But all of a sudden, you start remembering crap that happened to you when you were 5 years old. You remember what someone said to you that really irritated you. You remember all these dreams you used to have. You remember just things just start popping into your awareness, one after the other. And most people at that point say, oh, I'm not meditating because I still have all of these thoughts. Now, that's not true. What's happening is that by you holding your awareness on that point, you are now giving your being, your body, your mind, all this stuff that's been stored in you, a chance to open up and empty out. So as long as you can stay focused while letting this stuff pass through your mind, you are emptying it out. And every time you sit in meditation and do that, it gets less, and it gets less, and it gets less, until one day you're sitting there and nothing is there. You're fine. You're sitting, you're peaceful, you're alert, and everything is right in the world. And you can stay there for a long time. Because when you have that experience, all of the crap is trickled out, and you are aware of what you really are, which is being. Okay? And once you can be aware of that, things that made you angry, things that you were worried about, everything is okay. And then you continue to practice, because what happens is once you get it there, then you start experiencing it in your daily life. And you're sitting there listening to me, or you're having a conversation with your neighbor, or you're driving down the road, and it's still there. And it comes and it goes, but it gets longer and longer and longer until you are just established in that state. And that is what we would term actual meditation. Everything else is preliminary. Everything else is technique. But eventually you let go of the technique and you simply exist, and then samadhi happens or oneness happens. And all of the great teachers say that you can't make that happen. You can do things to remove it, to remove the obstacles, but then it just happens of its own accord, like water flowing. And the stronger and stronger it gets.